Welcome. I'm Alex Roberts. I'm a professor here, and I'm also co-advisor to the Sports and Entertainment Law Society, which is the group of students who came up with this idea and executed it and are really responsible for this whole event. So it's my pleasure to introduce the first part of our program tonight. We're so grateful to have Ed O'Bannon here. He traveled from across the country to be here with us and allow us to host and bear witness to his first appearance to discuss the litigation that shares his name. And we're grateful to our other speakers and our audience members who turned out tonight. I teach entertainment law, a lot of you know. Entertainment lawyers are not supposed to be fangirls and fanboys. We're supposed to play it really cool, keep it professional, not get too excited. But I think that's really hard to do today. I'm sure that Professor McCann will do a better job of it than I will, but I have to confess that I'm just super excited. So 3 years ago, I spoke on a panel here, which Professor McCann moderated, about the O'Bannon case. And I tried to tell the O'Bannon story to the extent I was able. So it's a story of a former college basketball player who was just going along, living his life, doing his thing, and one day his nephew said, "Hey, Uncle Ed, I can play you in my video game." And I can't see his face right now. That story may be completely apocryphal. I've heard different versions of it. I've seen other versions floating around. Ed said to himself, "Okay, let me see. Yeah, that sure looks like me. It's my number, it's my jersey, that's my bald head, right? That's my left-handed self shooting baskets. Those are my stats, that's my height and weight. That really seems like it looks a lot like me." And I just tweeted out an image a couple hours ago, so if you saw that, you can see it is almost difficult when you put the actual photograph and the avatar side by side. It's kind of hard to distinguish them. They did a really good job. So Ed O'Bannon decided to sue, and he brought some friends along with him. The O'Bannon plaintiffs challenged the use of their names, images, and likenesses by the NCAA and by companies like Electronic Arts, and they succeeded. They forced courts to reassess the NCAA's ability to exert complete control over college sports and college athletes. And they forced courts to acknowledge that the use of video game avatars that clearly reference individual players is a use that falls within state right of publicity laws and not one protected by the First Amendment. So the Northern District of California held that the NCAA's practice of barring payments to athletes violated federal antitrust laws. The case went up to the Ninth Circuit. It was affirmed in part and reversed in part. They stayed the injunction. The Supreme Court just last month denied the petition for cert. So they left in place that ruling that NCAA amateur rules violated antitrust law, but they also left some other questions unanswered or open. And I'm sure that our fantastic panelists will talk more about those. So in law school, we use the case method. We assign cases, we make the students read cases, and then we call on them and we say, "Tell us the issue and the holding and the ruling and the dicta." I see a bunch of my 1Ls in the room, so I was thinking about just, calling on them right now to freak them out, but I'm not going to do it because we are on video. That's not fair. At the end of the day, we're limited by what's in front of us. So we're limited by what's in the judicial record most of the time, what's in the excerpt in the case book. And if we have questions that we would love to ask the parties, we usually can't do it. So this is really, really special tonight for a lot of reasons, because we get to see this case come to life. We get to say, think about the case, talk about the case, and actually ask questions to the lead plaintiff in the case. So the case is going to come to life with Professor McCann and our panel of experts talking through its implications with the man himself, Ed O'Bannon. So I'm going to hand it over to these two. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you so much, Professor Roberts. Thank you all for coming tonight. As Professor Roberts noted, this is a student event. Students put this event together. Tremendous work. We have really amazing students at UNH Law, and I'm honored by their great work in executing this event. I also want to thank Mary O'Malley, who I don't think she's here. She's our assistant, who basically does all the work for us and doesn't get credit. So I want to make sure she gets all the credit she deserves. Ed and I had lunch earlier, and we learned we have something in common. We both stopped growing at age 15. Now, there was about a foot difference at that moment, but we share that. He thought he would be 7'2". I thought I might be 5'11". Not everything works out,
yeah,
right?
Very true.
But
very true.
Let's go back in time to when you decided to bring this case. Professor Roberts noted a video game experience. What brought you to that decision?
Well, I don't know if there was any one thing. I know when I saw the video game, I said to myself, and my friend who was with me said, hey, everyone got paid on this except for you. And I thought about it, and I was just like, wow, what a trip, But for me, I chalked it up, me personally, I chalked it up as, it's the system. It's just how, that's how it is. That's how we did it when I was in school. And that's just, business as usual, really. And then maybe 2 weeks later, Sonny Vaccaro gave me a call. Mr. Vaccaro, whom I'm very close with, gave me a call and thought about filing a lawsuit against the NCAA. And I said, and he gave me the reasons. And I said to him, initially said to myself, but then I said to him, I just went through this same thing 2 weeks ago. It's fresh on my mind. I'm interested in what you have, what you're thinking about. And so he kind of laid it out for me. And keep in mind, this initial phone call was more of a hello, we haven't talked in a little bit, I just checking up on you, that sort of thing. And then I asked him how he was doing, what he was up to, and he told me about the case that he was going to bring forth. Oh, and by the way, maybe you want to be a part of it. That was kind of how he presented it to me, and then that's when I told him what I had just went through. Yeah. So that's where for me, that's where it all kind of hatched. And then I took that home to my wife, and we weighed our pros and cons, and I came back and asked Mr. Vaccaro the next day or two, we've got kids that are going to be coming through the ranks. Is this going to, how is our lives going to change? Are they going to look negatively at my kids, or that sort of thing? And I don't know that I got a straight answer, because I don't think he could give me one. I didn't know what to think initially, but at the same time, it was a reason. You don't, as a player, your hands are tied. You're on scholarship. There's pressures from various people, whether it's coaching staff or administration, on not to say anything, on your feelings towards the system. And this was an opportunity that I got. Now I can say something. And so, that's really kind of where the needle went after that, was going towards saying something.
You mentioned the scholarship. So what do you say when people say, well, look, Ed, you got a full ride to college. You went to a great university, top school, you got great coaching, you had teammates, you got to be on TV. What's the big deal? Why are you complaining, getting all of these benefits? How do you respond to that? Because I know you've heard it, right?
Oh, absolutely. I've heard it. And for the scholarship and the education, I am truly grateful for playing basketball at the highest level with some of my lifelong friends. For that, I'm truly grateful. I met my wife while in college. We started a family while in college. For that, I am truly grateful. I got an education in the classroom, but also out of the classroom while in college. For that, I am truly grateful. But as far as I should be happy with the situation or only a scholarship, I don't see why I should be, because athletes bring in a certain amount of money, and everyone gets a cut of it, and when you receive the scholarship, that's your value, I guess, to the school. Me, I think, and see those laws or rules, I guess, were in place years ago, and nothing has changed. Everything's changed. Nothing's changed as far as the rules are concerned, but the value, television, uh, apparel, everyone is getting everything except for the athlete. The athlete only gets the scholarship. And I just thought that things, me personally, thought that things should change. Maybe a stipend, maybe, something to where the students would, the athletes would get, money put away, and then once they graduate, they can receive it. I just think that there are things that can be done that can change the athlete's experience.
You mentioned money put away. That was part of the remedy ordered during the district court level, over the $5,000 stipend that would be
Correct.
payable after students leave school,
Correct.
up to $5,000.
Right.
On appeal, that was knocked away. On appeal, the remedy was as long as schools are not bound from giving up to the full cost of attendance, they're complying with the Sherman Act. Do you feel as if the remedy in your case, you won, you beat the NCAA. The remedy is one that some have said is too modest, too unimpactful. What are your thoughts on the future of college sports after beating the NCAA?
Well, you have to start somewhere. And, when we first started, my whole thing was to just spark conversation. I didn't see it getting even this far, quite honestly. So for me, that in of itself is a victory. I hate to say it, but I didn't expect too much because the NCAA is so big, and they're strong, and their money is infinite, so they can, they've been in control for so long. I didn't know what to expect, and the fact that we have gotten this far, I think is a victory. I've always thought that you have to start somewhere. You have to crawl before you walk. And the fact that we are where we are, the fact that we went to court, the fact that we fought, the fact that they, at least Judge Wilkin, gave a decision on athletes getting a stipend. I thought that was a beautiful thing. There will come a time where we get to a certain point, and then we'll be able to get over that hump. But you have to, athletes aren't going to get $1 million a year right off the bat. I'm not saying that they're going to get that eventually, but while in college. But the fact that they're getting, they've been the decision was for them to get up to $5,000. I thought was a beautiful thing. You have to start somewhere.
Ed, you've brought one of the most influential sports law cases in the last 50 years. It's considered right up there with Kirk Flood versus Major League Baseball. But in addition to being Ed O'Bannon, the famous plaintiff, the famous pro basketball player, you're also Ed O'Bannon, the father. You have 3 children. You're Ed O'Bannon, the husband. You and your wife have been married for decades. What impact has this had on your family? This was 8 years of your life litigating this case.
It was tough, but it wasn't. It was tough on me because it was tough on my kids. My kids were, when we first started, they were young, but they had the potential to be recruited in their various sports, whether it be basketball or baseball. And I always thought and was scared that because their dad is a part of this case, that they wouldn't be recruited, or people would see their name and say, we don't want them, we don't want that those names in our program. And I, deep down in my soul, I think that kind of happened.
You do?
I do.
You think they were targeted because their dad is Ed O'Bannon?
I think so. I don't know. Nothing's been written. Nothing. I have no proof. But that's just how I feel as a provider, as a protector. That's how I see it. Now, were they going to go to the elite schools and get scholarships? No, their talents probably weren't. I'm realistic. I'm not.
You're not that dad.
I'm not that
You're not that
dad.
dad,
No,
right? Okay,
no.
all right.
But I do think that they could have. There was a certain level that they could have. Now my son, my youngest one's on scholarship at Pacific. He's a pitcher. But there could have been more. He could have gotten more offers, I think. My daughter got a scholarship to Utah Valley, and it was her only one. I know she had the talent to get more offers. But was she's going to play at UConn? Probably not, that sort of thing. So with that being said, how has this impacted my life as a dad, as a husband? I know my wife got tired of it. I know she got sick of this whole case. I know I think it weighed on her because she saw it weighing on me, and she was ready for it to be done. My kids are on social media, so I know that they got the brunt of a lot of negative words, I guess. I just got on social media not too long ago, so I'm starting to see what they have read. I don't know. Other than that, I don't know how it hasn't affected us too much more than that. Just, it was, I've got a life. I've got a job. I work at a dealership. I coach high school basketball. We're number 7 in the country, by the way.
Nice job.
Yeah, so we're pretty good. So I've got a life, but this is something that I didn't. My lawyers, when we initially started, they said, look, cut out about 10 years of your life. Because that's about how long this is going to take. We'll call you when we need you. Forget about us, that sort of thing. And that's really kind of what we did. So in that respect, I wasn't involved in the day-to-day. And you as lawyers know that a regular dude like me is not going to be involved that much. But at the same time, it weighs on you a little bit, but you focus on your life and make the most of it.
You mentioned going on social media, your kids going on social media, and I've seen it on social media, the criticism that your case ended video games, college sports video games. You hear it, the idea that prior to your case, people could buy.
I never heard it. What are you talking
Right.
about?
How do you respond to the, Ed O'Bannon's case killed these college video games?
I don't know. How do you respond to it? I don't. It's unfortunate that people feel that way. I don't know that. I don't know that I agree with it. I think what we did was we wanted to. I'll speak on a personal level. I'm not going to speak on what my lawyers thought. I wanted to bring forth an injustice. I don't know if injustice is a word. An injustice that college athletes, their image is being used. and they aren't being compensated for it. And not only are college current athletes being exploited, but former athletes are being exploited. And I used myself. I saw my image, and I wanted to say something about my image. And so, because we did that, and to my understanding, EA Sports, and I don't know this for a fact, but to what I understand, wanted to pay the athletes.
And they
said
ultimately settled.
right. But the NCAA said no, and so I just, and because they said no, well, EA then says, well, we're not going to make the games anymore. Well, that wasn't my decision. But look, if you want to blame me for it, I'm a grown man. I can take it. I'm not, I slept good last night,
And you'll sleep good tonight.
I sleep good tonight.
Right.
So that's fine. I'll take the blame. I'll take the brunt of it. I got into this knowing it wasn't going to be easy, and people were going to be upset. Change is hard, right? Change is hard. That's why we don't do a lot of it. I know I'm a stickler to a regimen, so if someone was to change up my whole deal, then it'd be hard for me. I get it, but change needed to be made.
And tomorrow, the NCAA could change amateurism rules where players could sign endorsement deals, players could be in video games. So as you mentioned, the system itself could be altered. It isn't your case that changes the presence of a video game or not. It's really about a system of rules that continue on.
Right.
You mentioned the word injustice, and it's hard to deny that race is part of the story. The majority of men's basketball players, both in college and the NBA, are African American. The same is true of women basketball players in college basketball and the WNBA, and football players as well. Moreover, you could link this to the fact that there are only 3 leagues where you have to wait some period of time after high school before you're eligible for those drafts. This is something that Alan Milstein, sitting over there, has written about. The NBA, WNBA, and NFL. Is it a coincidence that these are African American majority sports, or is there something else going on in your view?
It's a great question. It's a loaded question.
That's how I make my.
That's what you do, right?
That's what I do.
Yeah, it absolutely is a race thing. I've had extensive conversations with a friend of mine about this, and the one thing we didn't want to do while the lawsuit was going on was make it about race. It's about athletes, but there is a racial undertone. Absolutely. I don't know that is there a coincidence that football, basketball, and women's basketball you have to, I don't know if serve is the right word, but
Wait some time and probably go to college in that time.
Exactly.
In the NFL, you have to essentially go, right?
Right. Yes, it was, and look, I know some black athletes that are, come from money, and I know some white athletes that are, don't come from a lot of money. I know some white athletes that come from a lot of money and some black athletes that don't. So, it's not 100% one way or the other, but there is a yes, absolutely. To answer your question, yes, I think there is a racial undertone to it. It's my opinion, but yeah, I believe that.
Let's fast forward 10, 20 years. Does amateurism still exist? If it does, what do you think it looks like? Is the NCAA still around, or do conferences do their own thing? What kind of world of college sports do you think exists in the future?
I think it'll be different. Does amateurism still exist? I don't think so. I think athletes will. Be getting salaries.
You do.
Yeah, I do.
From who would pay the salaries?
Well, it could be like in the Olympics, how you have your sponsors. I think athletes will be able to make commercials. I think an athlete will be sponsored by Toyota, which I work for. I think athletes will have apparel deals and that sort of thing. I don't think it'll be like it is right now. I think there will come an athlete or two that has, and I've said this before, that has a tremendous amount of influence and will push the envelope. They will force their coaches, they will force their university to make a change. And they will galvanize their teammates, whether it's in football or basketball, but they're going to galvanize their teammates to force their university and force the NCAA to make a change. I think we're headed down that direction. I said this when we first started. I also said to myself, and said to whoever was listening, and it wasn't a whole lot, but I said, we aren't going to make a huge change with this lawsuit because I'm out of basketball. I'm not playing anymore, so I can't go out and you don't see my face every day, basically. But there will be someone who has a lot of influence, and they're gonna galvanize their teammates, and their teammates are gonna listen to them. And they're going to make something happen. And I think it's wishful thinking, but I think it'll be before 20 years. I think it'll be very soon. I just think that we're headed down, in that direction. Again, the guys are, the stipend is there. There are already guys or people in college athletics right now speaking up. So it's just a matter of time before someone just says, you know what, enough is enough. We're going to do this. This is how I feel. My older brother or older sister was in college before. They talked to me about what needed to be changed. I'm influenced, and this is, they probably won't say this out loud, but that's just kind of how they're going to feel in their gut. And I will be in that position to where I can make a change. I'm going to do it. That's just how I feel. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think the world of college athletics is headed in that direction.
Do you think the marketplace could play a role as well? Brendan Jennings went to Italy rather than going to college.
Mm-hmm.
Emmanuel Mude went to China in lieu of going to college and earned income while waiting for the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA D-League apparently is going to raise its salaries to, I think,
good.
something in the $50,000 to $75,000 range, so a little more competitive. Do you think that, this isn't true for football, this benefit doesn't exist, but in basketball, do you think you'll see more players saying, I don't need to go to college. I can go to China and do really well. I can sign an endorsement deal. I can wait out the NBA draft age limit till then? Or do you still think people will go to Duke, go to UCLA, go to Georgetown, et cetera?
I think people will go to Duke, and I think people will go to college. I think college isn't bad. It's a great experience. I would look. I love
At a college here, we of course,
Yeah.
we're a university, so
Yeah.
we're big promoters of.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
We need people to go to college.
Yes, indeed.
Right. And law school.
Law school, for sure.
Law school, absolutely.
Yes, indeed. I think there'll be one or two, guys that'll go overseas and play or sit out and try and make, money that way, and then enter the draft after that year is up. I think that'll happen. But for the majority, I think guys are going to go to college. I think they're going to continue to stick with college.
So, Ed, as you know, a group of Northwestern football players petitioned to be recognized as employees.
Yes.
And the thinking is that if they were recognized as employees by the NLRB, they would then unionize. Do you think college athletes, particularly at that level, Division I, men's basketball, women's basketball, men's football, that they ought to be recognized as employees similar to a graduate student who teaches classes? I mean, do you think that that's the right way of looking at their classification, or are they really just students who are playing a sport?
Well, right now they're students playing a sport, and they're not protected, I think, as much as they should be or want to be.
Or want to be? Why do you say want to be?
Well, because when you when you leave, you put in your work while on scholarship, and then say you hurt yourself, you're injured. Knock on wood, you injure yourself while in school while on scholarship, and then you leave, and once you're done, now you're not protected, and you don't have I don't know, insurance. You don't have protection basically for that particular injury to get repaired. I think with that union, they would. That was a portion of what they were trying to get done.
Did you think of yourself as an employee when you played college?
I did, but not. I did subconsciously. I did. Thinking back, I saw myself as an employee. While there, I was just playing ball, because again, it was a, it was a thing where a system was in place, and you just, you played ball, and that was really it. So, thinking back, I saw myself as an employee. I see myself as an employee thinking, looking back at that. Not while I was there.
And do you think that's part of the issues that you young, they're what, 19? They're not thinking about these issues that appear in your mind when you're 35, when you're 40.
When you're young, I know. Look, when I was in school, all I wanted to do was play ball and win a championship. That's all I thought about. And the majority, and go to class sometimes.
Well, was that hard to go to class? I mean, was it hard to go to class?
You know what? No, it wasn't. Not all the time. I mean, sometimes you just don't feel like it.
That's not true of only athletes, right?
Yeah.
I
Look,
think we all have been in that
I used to.
position.
I used to ditch class all the time and take my girlfriend to the movies. That was our thing. She was a lot smarter than me, and she ended up graduating before I did, so it was cool. But I digress. What was the question?
Did you consider yourself an employee?
Oh.
And
Yeah. I did. I thought myself. Again, thinking back, I saw myself as an employee. But while there, I didn't. It wasn't. It was just about hooping and having fun, and then just enjoying myself. Just the system was what it was. I wasn't gonna change anything. I'm just gonna play.
Ed, you mentioned Sonny Vaccaro in your opening remarks.
Yes.
What do you think is the role of Sonny Vaccaro and his wife, Pam Vaccaro, in this story that involves you at the forefront, right? Taking on the NCAA, spurring other lawsuits. I'm wondering if you have some words about Sonny and Pam that you'd want to share.
Yeah, Mr. Vaccaro, sweet man. His wife, Pam, is his backbone. You see one, you see the other. They're hitched at the hip. They are next to each other all the time. And they're beautiful people. I've known Mr. Vaccaro for 30 years, I've known him for 30 years, 32 years.
When did you first meet him?
My sophomore year in high school, or going into my junior year, going into my junior year in high school. I went to his camp. He had a Nike camp in New Jersey at Princeton. It was my first taste of Ivy League school. It was really cool. But I went to his camp and played in an All-American camp up there. And you know, I first met him. He was walking out of the gym when I was there, and there were stories about Sonny Vaccaro. You know, he was like this mob guy, Italian. You know, and so by the time I met him, his stature, you know, he was as tall as the building. You know, you would think that he was like this, you know, huge, massive person. And he came walking through the door. I almost walked by him. You know, he was like this little guy. You know, and I was like, wow, what a, you know, I always thought that that was the weirdest thing. But his, you know, he was such a huge personality. And someone who cared deeply for the athletes, for change. You know, he has been since day one. This is his baby. You know, people give me credit because it's in my name. He's the one that started this. He asked me to be a part of this. This was his idea, and Pam's idea. And they gave me strength to keep going through this. There were times where it had gotten pretty hard to continue with this, and I would call him and talk to him, and he was a soothing voice for me. I also got a chance to talk with Bill Russell. Bill Russell is one day in particular was very instrumental of me actually sticking with this lawsuit. I was ready to give it up.
When was that?
I can't remember specifically a time, but I was so fed up with feeling like I was just by myself in this. You know, my kids were upset, and, you know, they were upset, so my wife was upset, and so you know, and I was just like, you know, enough with this. And Bill Russell, who was a very good friend of the man that owns the dealership that I'm at, was in the market for a vehicle. So I was asked to give him a call and set it all up. Well, I gave him a call, and he was like, "Ed, man, how's it going? How's the lawsuit?" And he was a part of it, right? He was one of 4 very influential people involved in this. And so when he asked me, I just broke down. I just cried like over the phone. I can't believe I did it, and I can't believe I'm telling you guys this. But I broke down, and he was like, "Man, you know, don't worry about it." And I ended up closing my office door, and I was just like, I'm done, man. You know, I've had enough. I'm by myself in this, and nobody is helping, and I'm just through with this, you know. And we talked for about an hour, and he had told me a story about how when he was a kid, and he had gotten, his mom moved his family into a new home, and he had gotten beat up. And every time he comes home, you know, he gets beat up by this kid, and his mom would just, finally she was like, "Look, you know, enough with this. You either go back down there and kick his ass, or I'm gonna kick yours," you know. And so he had to go back downstairs and fight this kid, and he ended up beating him up, and the kid left him alone. And, You know, so he was just, the moral of the story was, you know, to hell with the big bag bully, you know, stand up and fight for yours, you know, and, you know, eventually they will stop. And so you know, it felt good, and I'm sitting there talking to Bill Russell, so it was, you
Right.
know, it was the best thing in the world. So I wiped my face, and I was good. But it was just one of those, you know, I think everybody has a bad day. I had one, and I got to talk to Bill Russell on my bad day, and he cleared things up for me. So
That's pretty good.
yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool.
You got to give me his number, because when I have
Yeah.
bad days, I want to call Bill Russell.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you felt lonely. What advice do you have for the next Ed O'Bannon? Because other players are bringing cases. Do they really know, do you think, that experience of feeling lonely, that this is an 8-year case, it wears on you, the media is covering it? Is there any way to prepare for it? What advice would you have for the other players who are bringing or will bring those cases?
My advice, stay as positive as you can, and you know, pray to your higher being, whatever it is. Surround yourself with you know, some of the most positive people, family. In my case, it was family. Surround yourself with positive people, people you know you can lean on, people that will keep your head above water, you know, because there will be times where, you know, it's going to be hard. But, you know, you just, to me, it's just one of those things you have to kind of go through, you know. I mean, I don't, you know, you mentioned Kurt Flood early on. I saw a documentary on him on HBO before we filed this lawsuit, and it showed how he was alone. You know, he fought, and his was much, you know, his civil rights, and I'd never compare myself to him, but he was went through a hard time. You know, I think when you take a stand like this, you know, again, it creates change, and a lot of people don't want change, so they're gonna make it hard on you. Expect that, and you know, I don't know what kind of advice I could give, but this is kind of a bit of a nutshell for me, in my experience. You know, all in all, I've enjoyed it. You might not, the way I've been talking, you might not believe that, but I really have. I've enjoyed it. I've met some wonderful people along the way. I've gotten closer to Sonny and Pam Vaccaro over the years. My kids are stronger because of it. My wife is stronger. She's glad it's over. I'm glad it's over, truthfully, because we wanted to move on with our lives. You know, we decided to take a stand, you know, for whatever that's worth. And now that our portion is done, you know, we felt like it's time to kind of move on. You know, the next person take the baton and run with it. You know.
So you go back in time to 2008, you still bring this case? Or do you say no? If you could do it all over again, do you still bring it?
Absolutely. Yep. This is a chance to put your name on something that is going to I don't know, bring change, I guess, or at least spark conversation that will bring change. As much as I don't want to, as much as I wouldn't want to, my soul tells me that I have to be a part of this. My brain says, don't do it, you know, but my soul tells me that I have to.
Excellent. Well, we are going to stop at this point, and we're going to move on with our event. Going forward, there will be a panel discussion of experts. Ed and I aren't going anywhere. Ed, myself, and Warren Zola from Boston College. We are going to be sitting over there, and we'll be contributing thoughts as it goes on, but we have a tremendous panel coming right up. But most importantly, I'd like to give Ed O'Bannon a hand.